Hi, my name is Sue Scavo, and this is my husband,
Bill
St. Cyr. Welcome to our conversation here about dreams. Really great to have everyone who's here and everyone we're getting more and more people, so it's great.
It's one of the things I love about dreams and what kind of started this conversation for Sue and I in terms of this model is that when we're dreaming, it's actually not that our conscious mind is completely shut off. It's just that it's not in charge. Whereas in our day-to-day life, our conscious mind is in charge, which is fine, except that there's a lot in our unconscious. There's a lot in the greater consciousness of the dream and of spirit that if we could let go of these ideas that we're talking about love and about pain, for example. Like a lot of times people think there can't be love and pain, there can't be love and hurt. And we find the opposite is true. We find if I shut down to my fear or my pain, the heart is this organ, at least on a spiritual level. If you shut a part of it down, you shut it all down. I mean, maybe not completely, but if you shut down 20% of it because of some hurt that's hard for you to be with, and I understand that we all have a lot of hurts that are hard to be with, it doesn't just repress that hurt. And we'll see this in dreams all the time. We'll really see that as someone is willing to be with their hurt in a way that's healthy for them, not isolated, with support, if they can find that inside themselves, if they can find it in the world, that what happens not only in their dreams but also in their life is everything opens up.
Right, because there's the word that comes to me is fullness. There's a fullness to being in our experience. I mean, we're human. We have human hearts. We have a human soul, and it's about being in the fullness of the experience of what that is. So, so like in the space of the fullness of love or passion or being human. There are experiences like trauma. There's experiences of, great horror, of fear, of, we just read the news. It's just like, there's a lot of there's a really many hard things that are happening, and many hard things have happened to each of us in different ways, some obvious and some not so obvious. And, there's a fullness to stepping into those and working with those and being with how we as humans feel into that and feel it and release it and find our way not to live with, a heart that's only working at 20%. It's like opening it up to feel the fullness of it all.
Which isn't going to be like a full throttle process, but that's what the dreams will do, is they'll take you through a step at a time. I had a dream recently. It's kind of a really old issue for me, where there was a bomb, and in the dream I was like kind of a James Bond kind of character trying to defuse the bomb. And, it's like a learn how to work with that dream in a way and see, where am I doing that in my life? Where does it come up when I'm dealing with the technology? And I feel like it becomes kind of this bigger issue than it really needs to be. Where can I be with that in a different way? In the dream, and this is after many years of work, I kind of finally let it go, and I just go have a beer with the animist. And it's kind of funny because I don't even drink that much, but it was sort of, and so can I just be in a place? I mean, that's a great example of what we're talking about. Can we be with the stresses that come up in our life that feel like bombs, for example? Can we work in our dreams in a way that helps us to really understand where are those trigger points in our life? And what does it take for me to learn how to be in a place where I can walk away from that? What's the feeling capacity? For me, it's a lot like, can I just be scared and not have to do something about it?
Right. So the way that the dreams work with us is they bring us into these stories. They bring us into a constructed story in order for us to experience whatever the dreams want us to learn about. So, in your example, you have this old pattern of there's a bomb, I need to do something, I got to detonate, it's up to me. You could, like this old pattern of maybe needing to be the James Bond one, like it's up to me.
Sue has a problem, I'll fix it.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'll be the big guy.
Right, or like, the computer's
Gets
broken.
harder and harder the older you get.
So there's a way, so the dream is showing that pattern and also showing that there's a different way. So it in this particular version, it was kind of funny. You're like, oh, I could just walk away from it. And, there's the character in the dream who you called the animus, who's an archetypal figure, who's a teacher. And we use animus and anima for the male, female teachers that come in our dreams, for want of a better word, or for what they are. And then you get to go off with him. But, like 10 years ago when you had dreams like this, the panic was really driving you. And so there's a big thing in that moment.
Yeah, the big shift really, in a way, in my practice has to do with my capacity to be scared. Like, so if I stop trying to fix the bomb, then I'm just scared that things are going to blow. And, sometimes things don't blow. I mean, we're fortunate not to live in a world right here. But even with what you went through with the surgery recently, we didn't know whether you had cancer or not. We didn't know. There are plenty, we could go to the doctors any day and have a real bomb be there on some level, or God knows, what people deal with in the world, both here and around the world. So literal bombs, but can we not live with our loved ones? Can we not live in our moment-to-moment times of solitude? Can we not live our work lives? Can we not live our spiritual lives from that place? It's really the thing that dreams teach us. Do you want to tell about that dream that you had?
Yeah, I was just going to do that.
I'm going to see if I can use this.
All right, so I had
hang on a second. I'm going to see if I can get it over to the whiteboard.
I had a dream the other night that I want to share. That just felt so much about, obviously, what I've been thinking about, but what we've been thinking about around the dreams. Oh, look, you're over here now. About this, and I think for me it really helps to feel into the so what, like, okay, so, but so my dream was I was with this person, this archetypal figure, the animus is a male figure, just a kind of more like a presence, and what he was saying to me was this. He said, there's two circles, and there's one circle is small. I guess I'll just draw.
Yeah.
One circle is small.
Yeah, it's really hard. Are you using the black?
I am.
Yeah, use the black as much as you can because it doesn't show up really great. That's good.
So there's one circle, and in that circle is where I feel sadness. Going through my surgery, I also lost my mom this year, and I had a difficult relationship with her, so it's been a very intense summer for me. And so I've been feeling a lot of grief and fear around all these things. And
Two surgeries.
And so this presence in my dream, the animus was saying there's two circles, and in this circle you feel the sadness. And there's another circle, which is very expansive. And so it's more like this. It's so big that it can't even be put on the board. It's bigger than I even know. Really large. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
So it extends over and all the way around. And so what he said was like, when you are in the circle, when I'm here and I'm feeling my grief or my sadness, I forget about the bigger circle, which is all about expansion. It's all about like possibility. And for me, it kind of fits in with what we were speaking about around the fullness of like being in the love or being in love. Living love is this more expansive place. And sometimes when we get when I get into my sadness, my grief, I forget about it. And in the dream, I'm like, yeah, I get that. That makes total sense to me. It's kind of how I feel about things. Thinking, oh, like I know more about this expansive place than I ever did. So then the dream shifts, and now I'm reading a letter, and I don't remember now what the letter was about, but what came up was all the sadness, was all this grief, and it felt completely unbearable. I felt like I could not, there was no possible way for me to even carry this grief that I was feeling. And in that moment, I was here. I was totally in the smallness, and there was nothing else. I totally forgot about the expansion. So there was like the thing I just 2 seconds before had been taught directly.
Which is kind of an unusual dream, by the way. It's not. It's kind of
we
cool.
don't often, the dreams, the dreams won't come and say, like, this is what you need to learn. They'll show us or take us through an experience. So then I'm in it. And then, so I'm standing there reading this letter, feeling utter grief, like I can hardly stand it. And then then in the letter it said, don't forget the link below. And I looked at the bottom of the letter and it said, and there's a link that was to the bigger circle. And then I remembered. And so I went from being just in my grief to, oh, right, and there's all this other spaciousness. And then I could bear it. Then I remembered there's a bigger, I guess we could say a bigger love, a bigger consciousness, a bigger possibility, a fullness that isn't just my grief. And in the dream, I was like, right, I forgot, and now I remember. And it creates this space for me to actually feel it. It was, it was a really beautiful dream, and I'm still like in the process of being with it. I mean, on a personal level, part of this grief is like the loss, of my mother and how really I lost her a long time ago, but the final loss, and also like, how scary it is to go through surgery and to be uncertain, and my world became this big. It literally became this big, and sometimes it's hard for me to go beyond like, oh my God, I'm hurting. Am I never going to get better? Am I never going to feel better again? I would get, it gets kind of small. And so to have the reminder to go, don't forget the bigness, don't forget that there's more here, was kind of extraordinary. And I think for me where I am in my process. And I feel like it also speaks to what this work wants to do. So in the so what, okay, so like this is like a model how the dream works, how dreams want to work with us in this particular way. But like right now it's like in the so what, like, okay, so what? So I have all this grief and I know there's more. Well, it matters because it matters to who I am as a person, because what happens if I forget about this and I just have this grief I can't bear, then I'm going to try not to. I'm going to build a wall all around me, which I have done, as my husband knows and my friends know. I'm going to build a wall around me to protect me from ever having to feel this grief. I'm going to build this wall, and I'm going to be as alone, I'm going to protect myself. I would actually do this. I'm going to erase the sadness and have the wall so that the sadness is out, I'm protecting myself from the sadness. We say, this is my grief. I'm going to build a wall so I don't have to feel it. So I don't get the bigger place. I don't have to feel the sadness, which feels better in the short run. But here's my spouse over here, and my friends and my family, and we have a daughter. And, so here's my friends and my kid and my colleagues, all the people I love. And they're now outside the wall. And I'm in here completely alone. Even though I may be together, going through my day-to-day, inside, I live in here, in this wall, protected like this. Maybe even like this, like completely covering my head. And so it matters, because how do I learn to love or live in love if I've got a barrier, and also maybe some gun sticking out saying, don't come closer. Like, really don't come close, because I don't really, if you love me, I'm going to feel my sadness too. So if I let in the love, I'm also going to let in my grief. So what the dreams want to do is they want to work with, what they do is they work with what is the wall, and can we begin to make little chips in it? Can we begin to like make a little break so that maybe I can let a little of the sadness in? Can I let a little of the sadness in like that? And in doing so, then I get to be with my people in my world. And then I get to be with the bigger expansiveness that is possible, that the dreams are offering. Like I get to be with the teacher who's saying, don't forget that when you're in your grief, there's also this bigger reality. And it's okay that you forget sometimes. So in the so what for me, like, so what? So the dream's telling me I lose I lose a bigger perspective when I get in my grief. It's like, well, what the so what is that then I lose my husband in some way. I lose my connection with my kid. Or I may be protecting my kid from feeling her own sadness. I mean, then I may be projecting out things. So it does really matter that we live with the wall around us to protect us. And then we don't get to be with the fullness of everything.
I guess I just quickly want to say you could try to live kind of out, and this is what I mean about the insulated places. You could also, like some people will try to figure out how to live outside that wall and kind of avoid the pain in another way. And I mean, it comes in different forms. It's really hard to draw in 2D, but
some people would just be like, oh, I'm just going to live here, and I'm going to act like there is no wall. I'm just going to be like, leap out of the wall. But still, some part of us, some part of our heart is still kind of locked up in here.
Right, that's a really good way to say it, because then we try to live in the joy, but really without the depth of who we are. So.
Right.
Actually, someone posted a Rumi quote. You want me to read it?
Yeah. I like it when people bring poetry in.
This is from Texas. We don't have a name. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. I think that's the whole quote. To me, dreams answer the question in pieces because we could not truly handle the whole of the dream. We start with this thread, and maybe the next dream we get another piece. That's really beautiful. That's really very much, what I like about what you're saying really is the day-to-day, is the piece by piece. I think we all know the piece about breaking down our walls on some level anyway. The real challenge, and I think the revolution of the dream in a way that we're talking about, is how do I actually do that in my day-to-day life? How do I actually learn piece by piece from my dreams or from other practices? I mean, really what we're talking about is consciousness evolution on some level, and there may be other people use other practices, but regardless of the practice, like how do I use that place where I'm accessing a deeper consciousness in a way that it's not just about when I'm in my dream work session, or it's not just about when I'm in my yoga session, or it's not just about
when I'm body work with me,
or when I'm praying or whatever. It's really like, how do I really embody that in my life in those nitty-gritty moments when I'm cranky or you're cranky, or with Sam, our daughter, how do we really bring love into this world in a very real way?
Right. Well, we've just kind of stumbled onto the idea, the phrase dream activism, which I just really love, because to be an activist for the dream means to be an activist for this kind of consciousness, to be an activist, to have the dream do exactly what that quote is, like take it apart piece by piece, and I love that quote because it is true. There is that Dickinson quote too of like, the truth must dazzle gradually or else we all go blind. Like, it is true, we have to like acclimate to the truth, like about who we are, both in ways that are like opening and like manifestation and in our passion, and also in ways, open up to who we are in ways that block us, like in ways that when I'm behind my barrier, I become very passive aggressive and cold, and like I have to like see that gradually too. And the dreams work very compassionately, very with humor sometimes, very, very intensely when we're working with trauma, to begin to not just break down the wall, but show us why we have the wall. I mean, no one builds a wall because we want to live in a fortress, but sometimes we have to. If we have trauma, we have to, we have to survive. And so once we get past the survival of whatever that moment is, or the long moments are, then it's like, okay, so how can we chip away at this? Or how can we begin to take it apart brick by brick? So, and again, they do through story. And the one thing I want to say again is how incredibly individual it is. So our intention is to be, when I say I'm a dream activist, like I'm a dream activist for the dream, and I'm also an activist for how we work with dreams, which is to be that it's so specific to each person that there is no sort of like dogma about it, the way that we work with it. Everyone has their own experience, everyone has their own journey, everyone has their own wall, and how the dreams work with us are completely different from person to person, we've been in this work 18 years, and our work has never been similar. We're always being taken down different paths, and even when we have a dream that's like maybe confronting us or opening us to some possibility, it's very different in how the archetypes work with us, how the dreams work with us, because we each have our own particular wounds, our own reactions to trauma, our own survival techniques, and so the dreams address that in a very particular way.
So let's get into some examples maybe, and maybe talk about the how.
So I'll just give an example of the person, the nurse in my OR moment. She told me this dream, and one part of it was about losing teeth, and I think that's a very common dream. And in that moment, I asked a very quick question because I was actually going under, but there's a million questions I could have asked about that. That is very personal for that person. Like, do you have any issues with teeth? Do you have anything happen to you as a kid with teeth? Did you lose teeth? Have you ever, you go through that whole series of questions because it's about like, well, what's your experience with losing teeth? Or did you have a grandparent who lost teeth? Like, have you ever seen any, like, there's a whole series of opening a line of questioning so that it's not that losing teeth equals this, because a lot of us have like losing teeth dreams. This doesn't equal this. It's the question is like, what does this equal to you? And what is possible in asking the question?
Right. So that's the process of associations, that specific part as we get ready to work with, and we are for playing around with working our own dreams. I mean, a lot of us have worked with, and I still work with a practitioner. And it's kind of new for us, honestly, to kind of bring this work into the do-it-yourself world, but there is some stuff on the website about how to do that. But even when you're working with your own dreams, like really to ask that question, like, because it's a totally different dream if, you had a terrible trauma around teeth falling out than it is for someone who has it was just a part of growing up and their teeth fell out. It's a whole different experience, and really, in terms of how we apply this model to our dreams, we're talking about trying to get below the surface. So the idea of what teeth is falling out, and so one of the questions then becomes, well, what is that for you? So just in terms of steps, and I do kind of want to do some rough steps here, like, so that would be one. So another step that we've been kind of talking about all the way through is to really to not interpret, judge your dream, like, and we all do it. It's not like we don't. I still wake up sometimes and think, wow, that was a weird dream. After 20 years of working with my dreams and knowing that they're not weird, I might not understand that. But there is a kind of mindset that we want to bring to the practice that we do, and the very first thing is really to not judge or interpret.
Meaning, like what that looks like is, when we step into a dream, we're looking at the dream through our own eyes, through our experience in this life as a kid, through whatever we bring into this life. Like, we're looking at through our own set of experiences, our own storyline, our own belief system, our own beliefs about who we are and what the world is. So when we step into a dream, that's what we're looking at. We're looking through our own perception. The dream is bringing another perception. The dream has a whole different viewpoint that it's bringing to us that is not always in alignment with the way we see things. So especially if we're living behind a brick wall over here. The practicality of, well, what does that mean to like look at a dream without judgment or ideas about it is like to really literally look at the dream like what's happening. I may say, the classic is like I'm in jail. I'm in jail, I'm being held prisoner, and I've got to get out of here. That's classic. And, in the dream, and of course I've had this dream. In the dream, like when I experienced the dream, the first time I had a dream like this, I was so sure. I was like, I'm in prison, I'm going to have to like fight my way out. Actually, I had a dream about this like 3 months ago. Like, I'm in this cell and I'm like crouched, no, it was a couple years ago. And I'm crouched down and I'm like ready. I'm like, okay, so it's my first day in jail and I'm going to have to fight my way out of here. And I'm waiting for the guards. I'm going to have to prove myself so no one will mess with me in the jail. I mean, I had this whole storyline going on in my head. And I was so convinced. And literally, I was crouched with my hands like this. But what was happening in the room was that it was a room. It was a simple room. There were no bars. There wasn't even a door in the doorway. It was just an open doorway. It didn't even look like a jail cell. There wasn't anything. It was an empty room. And I was like, I'm in jail. And this woman walked in with an umbrella, and I was like, she's going to use an umbrella to fight with me. Okay, I can do this. And she just kind of looked at me, and the umbrella had all this color on it, and then she left. So from my point of view, I'm in jail. I'm about to be tortured with this umbrella. Now, from the dream's point of view, they're looking at me going, wow. The dream might be saying, that's weird. She's in a room and defending herself against what? Like, I had to see this dream in a different way. I really had to look at this and say, oh, like there's actually I have no proof that this is a jail. I have no proof that that woman who's in this colorful dress with this colorful umbrella is actually there to do anything to harm me, you know, but there's something that I carry in myself that believes that. So that's when we say, like, to really be with look at the dream, like what, I know this is my experience of it, but what's actually happening? Now, it may be, because we do have dreams like this, it may be, and I've had this dream too, that I am in prison, there are guards, I am being hurt. There are those kind of dreams too, which is a different kind of dream, but, you know, the dreams want to challenge that perception.
Right. I mean, I think it's like to understand, like using your diagram, for example, that we tend to look at it from our side of the wall. We tend to look at everything from our side of the wall. And the practice really, as we approach the dream, before we even really dive in fully, although I think once you start doing associations, you're really starting to dive in, is to really ask what's, you know, so the three issues, like, so first, it's kind of the negative reference point of like, okay, can I set my judgments, my interpretations aside? Can I like let go of the dream dictionary? Can I let go of my opinions? It doesn't mean my opinions are wrong. We're not, we're not like in the model, the conscious mind isn't gone. It's just not in charge. So can we step back a little bit from our conscious expectation, our learned patterns, our behaviors, and just really ask what's happening in the dream? Can we look at like what's my association with being in prison, not maybe literally unless you have an experience in prison, but where do I feel like I'm in prison in my life? So then once, you know, then the next step is really we dive in. Like, so if we know that it's not in jail, or I know, for example, like I realize so at the end of that dream with the bomb, I realize it starts glowing really red hot, and I realize, so I can't diffuse this, even though I'm actually doing pretty well, which is,
too late.
Again, also really kind of unusual. But I also realize I can't. And then what's the feeling for each of us in those places? So we start like trying to step back. We kind of like develop a different kind of mindset, kind of let go of the dream dictionaries, let go of the judgments and interpretations, feel into what the associations, feel into like what's really happening visually, audio-wise. And then the real heart of the work for us is what's the actual experience in the dream. And even like what's the comparison between, you know, so you feel like you're in a prison, but you're not. Like, how much of my day do I walk around trying to defuse the bomb, for example? And how much of the time do I try to defuse a bomb that really it's going to blow no matter what I do? Like, so it's really diving into those experiences. What's my fear there? And really, like, we spend a lot of time, we'll have people close our eyes, or if I'm working my own dream now, you know, I'll close my eyes and I'll feel like, what's that feeling for me? I had a process, is like that process of like kind of stepping toward the dream and kind of really experience, and then really diving in, and then kind of this dance of like, what does it really mean? And that's really the challenge, I think, for particularly as we start to sometimes work dreams on our own. It's like that challenge of like, no, okay, so I can see that I do this, but what does it really mean about my life?
Well, it's like, it's the model again of like, you know, we go in really close to like, here's the feeling, here's your sadness, or here's I've got to defuse the bomb, or here's the two places, and then bringing it out to a bigger context. You know, like a bigger context of like, what does it look like in my life, and how does it play out, and what are my patterns, and is something changing or is it not changing? You know, and to really be honest about that. And to be in a place of, even in that place, to be in a non-judgmental place, to be in a place of like, well, what is that for me right now in my life? Because dreams are also, they're not just like, here's a big picture. They're also like, this is what's happening right now in your life. Is there some way that you're trying to defuse bombs? Or is there some way that I'm still like really defensive trying to get, like, I'm sure this is a prison. Like, and how does that play out, like, say, in relationship, for example?
Really fun when I'm trying to defuse a bomb and she's in prison.
You know.
We used to sometimes do presentations where we would play it out and we would chase each other around the room, which in a way was what it was like. Like you would be in this place where
very defensive.
You know,
in my corner,
and probably needed some space, and it would trigger this place in me where I would want to diffuse. So I would do the absolute opposite of what you probably needed, also the opposite of what I needed. And in a way, I would do the opposite of what both of us needed in that moment, personally or for the relationship. And I would kind of go toward you, you know, really believing I was trying to be helpful.
I mean, that's the thing, you know, like sometimes.
It's so helpful. Nobody understood.
So, you know, that's the part of the thing is like the perception, like how we see what we're doing and how we're living and what, you know, patterns in our lives. Like our perception is almost always, not almost always, it often is skewed to those experiences. I mean, even when it's something that seems good, like even when it's something that to us it seems good, and even in the world it's like, oh, like this is a good thing. You know, what it's doing, how is it like keeping us in our own personal walled-in place? You know, like there's some way that, is this serving building the wall up, or is it serving to help take the wall apart? You know, I think there's a way that it's really tender to open up the dreams in this way, you know, from this angle of the lived experience of it and what's underneath everything, because it opens up so much, you know. For me, for example, in that moment of the prison dream, you know, it opens up this place, you know, I have had trauma in this lifetime, and, you know, to be with the dream and be like, well, isn't it funny you're doing that? And it kind of is, and the one with the umbrella is kind of making fun of me. It's also like, but why am I doing that? Well, that's how I survived my trauma, my childhood trauma, which was, you know, sexual abuse. So, like, I learned to, like, live like this, and to take apart the wall, this wall, is no small thing. It means like being the vulnerable girl again that, you know, was hurt and violated. So there's this, and this moment holds so much for me. And to really like let go and relax and know that I'm not going to have to defend myself, that there is a way out, that I'm not trapped here, that there's a whole different reality. It's, you know, it's a big reality shift. You know, and I had this dream, you know, just a few years ago, even after I'd done a lot of my trauma work. And in the dream, I was totally convinced. And so when my person worked it with me, it was very tender to, I mean, we had a good laugh first, and then it was tender to go into this feeling what this felt like in my body and how much I've lived from that place. Part of what we've learned about being with dreams in this way, that isn't interpreting dreams. It isn't about like looking at like, it isn't just about looking at symbolism, but actually going into why that symbolism for you and what it means for you, and really gets personal and intimate. It's like there is a way to be in community about it. There is a way to.
And there's kind of a need for it.
Yeah, to be in a conversation. Like, you know, the dreams want to be in conversation with us. It's like, well, then what do we do with that? You know, we want to be in. You know, it's helpful to be in conversation with others. So. Our passion is like to get it out and to create a space for people to come in if they want to, or to come in and just experience it in whatever level feels right for them, you know.
So we have the website, we have the Facebook page, which is all free. And we're going to probably do once a month webinars like this, and we might focus them more on specific issues. Practice of learning how to work with dreams on our own is a little bit primitive, like we're just really starting. And we'll be editing it as we learn kind of tricks and tips to do that. So, and we'll just be writing about different issues, about gender issues, about issues of relationship, issues about being in the world, issues of ecology and dreams. So we have a couple of programs, one for dreamers that, you know, it's a $37 a month program. It's one of these monthly subscription deals. You can sign in and out whenever you want, but it's $37 a month. And it's what we're trying to do. It's just beginning. We're really kind of launching it this Saturday, or this is part of the kickoff for us. We're going to create a space where we're going to gather twice a week. We're going to use a more interactive version of the webinar software that we're going to use. It's more of a classroom software, so we'll be able to see each other. You won't have to have video if you prefer not to. And we're going to work with people's dreams. We're going to actually we'll have one gathering a week where we talk about more of a teaching piece or a learning piece about
the what and the how, perhaps.
Yeah, the more theoretical, and then we will have a very hands-on. So in the more I call it theoretical, but it might be a writing class, for example, or it might be an art class, but it wouldn't be necessarily working specifically with dreams. It might be doing paintings, for example, or talking about gender issues in dreams, or talking about how to work with your dreams on your own, or how to work.
That sort of thing.
So we'll have a couple of gatherings a week. They'll all be recorded. They're at various times. We're trying to cover as many time zones as we can. And then we'll have a group page where people can share about their work. So and then we're going to have a practitioner program, which will basically be a parallel program, but it'll be for people that want to work with other people's dreams. So we'll have two programs running parallel, kind of covering the same issues, but one from a personal perspective of like,
what is this for
my
me?
own dreams and my own practice and my own path, and then the other will be if I want to work with other people. The dreamer wants $37 a month. The practitioner wants $67 a month. We priced them really like we used to do $50 a class, so there'll be about 8 classes a month. So even if you don't get to them all, you'll get your money's worth.
And they're all recorded, so people don't even have to come. And if there's people who do want to work with somebody one-on-one, like we have, we teach people, and
we can refer you out. We're not taking clients right now, but we can refer you out to somebody. We have about 30 people that are all either trained people or in training. So, and we have a special deal going for basically right now for the webinar. I don't know whether we're going to expand it out or not. But I'm going to give you a link. I wish I could post it in a chat box or something, but it's one of the limitations of this webinar service. But I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
There's
that's
our wedding.
The wedding photo.
Okay, that's vulnerable.
So what happened? Okay, great. So you'll see the link on the top. You're not going to be able to click that on the screen, but basically it's our website address, studentsofthedream.com, with a / and then dream-revolution. Now, when you click on that, you're going to see both programs, and then you can get a combination package if you want to also. We call it the Total Immersion Program, but if you just want to do the Dreamer program, that's fine. And basically, for each of these programs, there's a coupon code. So if you go to that page, that's the only page you need to remember, or you're not going to be able to copy and paste it either. So it would be studentsofthedream.com / dream-revolution. And basically, you get if you type in, for the Dreamer program, if you type in the number 5, I kept the codes really simple, when you get to the payment page. So you'll click on the one that says $37 a month. You'll go to a page, you'll have a coupon code, and if you type in the number 5, you can do the first month for $5. You can try it out, see how it is. And then the really big deal is we're actually going to give you a mini session with one of our practitioners as also part of that deal. So you get a session, you get someone to work with your dreams. You get a real sense about whether this work really works for you. You get a real taste of what it's like. You get a month, basically a trial period, and you get all of that for $5. You also get a month of community support, which we think is really important. So, and then there's 2 other packages. So there's if you go for the practitioner package, you just type in 10, and then you'll be paying $10 for the month, and you'll get all of it also. And then if you do the immersion package, you type in 15, and you get both programs for 15 per month. So it's 5 for the Dreamer program per month, and then 37 after that, 10 for the practitioner program, and then it'd be 67 after that, and 15 if you go for the immersion package, and it would be 87 after that. So yeah, $5. So that's where my $5 at the beginning came from. I was saying I would really love it if one person signed up for $5, and I would be happy. We have our first person who said they signed up. So thank you for signing up. Appreciate that very much. I got my $5. my business part can relax now. So we want to open it for questions and answers. I don't know if folks have it. You can also just share if you want to share this space here. So if you want to try to speak, Sophia, no, it looks like you're not.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you very much for sharing all of your personal things with us and opening up the doors for questions.
Thank you. So great to hear somebody's. I have to say, it's really funny to do this without any feedback. We're used to seeing people and being a little bit. So thank you very much. Really appreciate the feedback and you taking the time to just say hello.
Yeah, we do. I mean, part of how we do this work, we use the word collaborative a lot. We do feel it's very collaborative. Like, as a practitioner, I don't think I have the answers. It's like when working with somebody, it very much comes up, and the work is through conversation and relationship. So for us, it was like, oh my God, are we going to be able to talk to people? Because it's so foreign not to do that.
We panicked a couple hours ago.
About like 2 hours ago, like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? Should we switch really fast? So nice that we found a hack. But it was really, thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's nice to have you here. Really appreciate your presence too.
Yeah, it's really sweet. Appreciate it. I think you're the one who posted the Rumi quote, right? Okay, so I'm looking. There might be another question. So I'm going to read questions. Otherwise, I like the idea that as much as we are observing from first-person perspective, that the dream is also looking at us from first-person perspective, perhaps as well. I love that. So yeah, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, like we really believe that. That's a brilliant point, really, because we believe that there's a consciousness in dreams. So while we're looking at dreams, and one of the things when I wrote and we were talking about this, a word that we really love is the word interrelationship. So we understand that the dreams are a part of us, but we also believe that there is some kind of outside consciousness. Is why we talk about spirituality so much. We don't see that as separate from us. It's actually kind of similar to Sue's drawing. We see ourselves as embodied within that consciousness, so it comes through us. And really, a lot of our practice is about how do we make that deeper consciousness conscious in our day-to-day lives. That's really the heart of the practice for us.
Right, and I love the way you describe it. I do feel that, like, when whatever wall we have around us, it's built of stories about how to live and how to survive and who we are, and so that's our perspective. The dreams, when the dreams come with it, when this other consciousness comes with its perspective or that perspective, it is often very different, and sometimes it's like very tender. Like, one of the things that like one of the pieces of my story that I grew up with was that I really believed a lot of like negative things about myself, from my trauma, and I really thought I was stupid. I had all these stories about it, and I was like, I'm just going to have to learn to live with that. I'm going to have to learn to live with this like really negative, kind of dark view of myself that wasn't really even true. Not that I'm a genius, but I really thought I was really, really stupid and that I would never get anything, that no one was ever going to love me. I mean, I had this, when I was like 24, I had no idea. I was even after college, I was even after like, all these things. I had no idea that there was anything that at the core of me, there was a place that was just unredeemable. And, I lived with that. I mean, my life wasn't bad. I just lived with this like kind of like knowing. And the dreams have been like, that is not true. Like, the dreams come with like a viewpoint of who we are and our light, like not just like our blind spots, but also a viewpoint of who we are as in our deepest hearts, our deepest souls. And that's something that I'm still learning. Like, I don't even know what that is yet. Like, that perspective of the dream is holding, my dreams hold that for me too. Not just like, look, this is where you're lost and this is how you're projecting your trauma, blah, blah, blah. Like, it holds that, which is really important work. And it also holds like who I'm becoming and what's the possibility that I hold within me that, from this in my wall, I think is very small. So, and I think a lot of us carry this like belief inside of us, like, oh my God, there's this one place I'll never be healed here, or this can never change, or, I'll always be like this. And, when the dream comes with its perspective, first person perspective, often as a being, like a character in a dream, to teach us like, what, that story isn't true. Like, and this is why it's not true. And this is why you believe it. And this is why it's not true. And so that's the kind of love and bigness that the dreams bring.
I had someone brought a dream today to a session. It's kind of a classic dream where they were getting ready for this like a kind of sacred ritual or religious experience, but in the dream they thought they were getting ready for someone else to give the blessing, for someone else to perform the ritual or the mass service, whatever it was. And but nobody showed up. You know, and I just asked, like, it's just such a great question, like, well, what if it's you? Like, what if it's me? What if we're all meant to bring this consciousness into the world in our own way? And, you know, a lot of times we always think it's going to be somebody else. And it's one of the things dreams challenge us all the time. It's really, it may not be that every part of a dream is totally about us, but it's always totally for us. So.
Thank you for that insight. You know, if you don't have a question tonight, but you do have a question, like you hang up the phone, you think, oh, I should ask that question, or I was too shy to ask a question, you know, please feel free to email that to us. You know, just you can email us any questions you have or any thoughts you had, and we'd love to hear from you.
We'll leave this link up in case anybody needs it for a few minutes. I'll actually even leave the question in. Oh, I think I saw 31, 32. Oh, a couple new questions coming in. Thank you, Sue said, and Vicki said, thank you so much for a great webinar. I really appreciate it. It was really helpful and thoughtful. Really great to have you here, Vicki.
Really nice to have you here, Vicki.
You too, Rock. I'm glad you scored a touchdown, Bill. Thanks, Ann.
That's
so
funny.
For those of you out there that are friends and supporters, thank you. We love you guys.
We love you guys.
And, we will leave it open if you have questions. I'll leave the question box up for a little while, so if you have any problems. But I think maybe it's time to close. Did pretty good. We scheduled 1.5 to 2 hours, and we're at 1 hour and 35 minutes.
So thank you for coming. You know, it is kind of a, you know, to spare some time to hear about this for, you know, friends who are already involved in dreams in this way, and for those who are curious. Like, we really appreciate you're taking the time to like be here with us, and yeah, just it's very, you know, it's very touching to both of us to have people come and bring their hearts and souls to just be like, oh, I wonder what that is.
I think that's a good place to close. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Really sweet to have you.